Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Last Edit podcast featuring yours truly, Silver Hawkins, and my wonderful friend, the great.
Citizen Sleeve, hello there.
As you may know if you've listened to our podcast before, this is a film podcast where every week Sleeve and I alternate between discussing films that we've chosen, and this time I've chosen the film The Day of the Jackal, which is a film adaptation of the novel by Frederick Forsyth of the same name. We try to sort of go for films that are lesser known than you'll see in a lot of other places, that you won't really find a lot of reviews for or a lot of publicity for, and try and sort of get eyes on them, because there are really a lot of great films out there that don't get a lot of acknowledgement or recognition. And
Absolutely.
I think The Day of the Jackal is one of them. I think it's like in the suspense thriller genre or spy genre. I think it's one of the best films ever made. Like, this is a movie that's, on a technical scale, is sort of a masterpiece in my opinion. It's sort of like a Swiss clock. Like every piece of it is so intricate in the way it's put together. Just very briefly, The Day of the Jackal is a movie about a British assassin. Well, he isn't necessarily British, but he's sort of set up to be British. He's an international assassin, and he's hired by the French terrorist organization, the OAS, the Organisation Armée Secrète, to assassinate Charles de Gaulle, the president of France at the time. Because the OAS are not happy with Algeria getting their independence. And basically he then starts planning and then sort of implementing the steps to carrying out the assassination attempt on de Gaulle, while the police then have to intercept and stop him. And that's basically the plot of the movie. It's a very sort of slow-paced film. There are hardly any action sequences in it at all. A lot of it is really just the Jackal doing prep work and sort of the intricacies of the meticulousness of his planning. Like, and it's never spelled out. It's never explained through exposition what he's doing. It's just you have to figure it out. So when he goes to a graveyard in Great Britain, and he goes and looks at the various gravestones until he finds the gravestone of a child who died 2 years old, you're led to believe, he's prowling for possible secret identities that he then forges the papers for. He gets the birth certificate and then applies for a passport under that name. So yeah, I think there's so many sort of setups and payoffs, and the ending, the way it's put together, and the way he sort of, like, the ingenuity of the solution that he comes up with for how he gets to the goal is, I think, brilliant. I think it really is just, and I mean, Zimmerman is sort of one of the auteurs of suspense. Like, if you go to a textbook on film, you will inevitably see High Noon in it, and the way High Noon sets up its shots in terms of, like, the focus on clocks and suspense and so forth. And there are a lot of the same tools used in Day of the Jackal in terms of building suspense, especially in the sequence towards the end, with the assassination attempt on de Gaulle. So yeah, I just think this movie is brilliant. Like, it's so slow, but you're still at the edge of your seat throughout.
I don't have many quibbles. We'll get to them, but it's been a very long time. I've only ever seen it once, but I used to read the book because my dad was always kicking around on my dad's book collection. So I've read the book before I knew the film once. And yeah, Zimmerman, I mean, I adore High Noon. I studied it for a long time because it's one of the very few real-time films. You know, the diegetic nature of the film runs alongside the actual real time of the film, which you don't get very often.
No,
Very, very
yeah.
rare. But you're right. The way that Zimmerman holds shots and features things like clocks and the way he frames characters is particularly unique to him, and has been copied so many times afterwards. You know, he was at one time, you think of, like, From Here to Eternity, one of the great film directors.
Yeah.
It's only later in his career, a bit like Billy Wilder and a few other directors of that ilk, they ended up kind of being shunned a bit by Hollywood, which is a real shame.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
this film is great. I mean, the pace is something that it's going to be unfamiliar to a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
you and I have watched a lot of films that have a very deliberate pace,
Yes.
very specific, very weighty in the way it holds scenes and holds shots and has long takes, which again is something which we don't see a lot in modern cinema. Certainly modern Hollywood cinema at that. The best thing about this film for me are the two principals. They're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Lonsdale
Edward
and
Fox,
Fox.
yeah, Edward Fox is. There was plenty of casting calls for this film. Roger Moore wanted to be in it. Michael Caine. There was a lot of big actors at the
Yeah.
time, but Zimmerman just didn't think that they would bring too much of their own personality to the role and overtake what is supposed to be a methodical, brutal, cold, isolating character who is
You want
supposed to have some charm, but not to that extent.
you want to know a funny story? I saw an interview with Edward Fox about how he got the part, and he said that Cinnamon had seen a play with him, and in the play he had uttered a line like "Women are never at fault" or something, and then Cinnamon had told him, "Any actor who can make that line sound believable is the actor I want."
That's light. I like that as a nice anecdote, definitely. Oh, that's great. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and the other principal is of course Lupin, who is played by Michael Lonsdale, who would later go on to be Drax in Moonraker, for instance. You know, he's in a lot of very cool films.
Yeah.
But this is one of his earlier roles, and his subordinate is Jacobi, Derek Jacobi.
Yeah, in a very
who is
early role.
a very early role. He'd later on go do all kinds
I,
wonderful
Claudius,
theatre
yeah.
actor, I Claudius, Gladiator, Caligula. I mean, loads and loads of awesome stuff. And this film does, which not many films do. First of all, it's the obvious: let the audience actually be intelligent and figure things out. So you're not going to find audible cues when something's going to happen. You're not going to find levels of exposition.
The only exposition in the movie basically is in the
opening.
prologue. Yeah, the opening.
Yeah.
That basically
Yeah,
says,
exactly.
this is the OAS, they tried to kill de Gaulle, they still want to try to kill de Gaulle.
Yeah.
Let's go from here.
Yeah, and that narration lasts about, what, 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And it's gone. That's it, done, into the film. And we should say as well, this is essentially another one of those kind of alternate histories. Now, that's what the book is. The assassination attempt we see at the start of the film did take place.
Yes.
And de Gaulle was indeed very against any kind of control over where he could go. So those elements are entirely true. It just they decided that they would, take it in a different direction with another assassin, the Jackal.
Yeah, and the opening also just brilliantly constructed. Like, I think one of the best openings in film history, just in terms of the suspense of that whole assassination attempt.
It's one of the few parts of the film that has a score as well. It's
Yes.
incredibly light on music, and that one is quite oppressive.
Yeah.
The music as it opens. It really suits what they're trying to set up. But the whole film, for me, what it comes right down to, is not treating the audience like fools and allowing them to see two characters at the absolute top of their game, incredibly intelligent, trying to outthink each other. And we don't see inside their minds. There's no point at which, Lupin sits down and explains his methodology. We're just supposed to understand that these are incredibly intellectual people in their particular fields, and they understand what they're doing, and they're outsmart. It's a classic Spider and Fly, but it's done with such panache. I think that the whole way through the film, you're constantly seeing them creeping closer. Lupin is creeping closer bit by bit. He's finding clues and elements that pull away, pull bits back, working with other agencies at international waters.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite elements of the film is its depiction of actual police work, like actual investigative. It's not like super exciting stuff. It's like sending 300 people to dig through 10,000 pages of archives where they have to sit through for
lethal
like
weapon here.
8 or 10 hours just rifling through papers to find names to correspond with a list.
Exactly.
And that's
the
the
busy
police
work, as it were.
Yes, absolutely. And that's sort of the painstaking extent that this film goes to in its attention to detail. And I just
there's a truthfulness to it, isn't there? And
Yes.
you don't. It's almost a diametric opposition to a Bond film.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's basically the diametric opposite of its later remake, the Jackal with Bruce Willis and Richard Gere.
And Richard Gere, we don't
and
talk
sadly
about
Sidney
that
Poitier.
existing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a good film.
yeah, no,
Not-
especially
not a
not
good film.
compared to this one. And
No,
it's
no, I mean-
it's basically the antithesis of what this movie is.
Yeah. It tries to do what Hollywood wants it to do, which is to be a high-octane action thriller, which
Yeah.
is not what this film or the
No,
book
this
is
is
about at
this
all.
is a slow burn thriller.
Very much so. And as you said, it's not about the action, although when that happens, it's telling and brutal.
Yeah,
It's much more to do with the setup, the planning, the thought process. And that's something that we don't see in a lot of modern films to tackle this. Maybe something like a modern equivalent would be Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Something of that ilk.
Yeah.
Not the same, but certainly, of a slower pace, a more
Yes.
thoughtful...
more cerebral.
far more cerebral, exactly. But there are so many amazing moments in this film.
Yeah, I mean, another one, like sort of the Jackal sort of mirror scene of the police going through the archives is when he's trying to come up with how to kill de Gaulle, and he basically just has a brainstorming session on his couch
Yeah.
while he's drinking a bit of scotch or whatever, or bourbon or whatever, and he's just sitting there with a notepad like how, when, where, and he just gradually crosses them out as he figures them out. And then you start to see how he starts to sort of pull these things together and put this plan into action. And that I mean, that whole process of each step along that path is just enormously interesting.
Well, it's obviously. So we start with the leader of the OAS being found out, as it were, and then being arrested, and he's executed.
Yeah, despite the fact that he asserts that no French soldier will ever point his rifle
will
to
ever
me.
kill me.
I mean, it's worth pointing out for historical context that the OAS was a real terrorist organization, and this was not just a terrorist organization. This was not just a group of guys sitting in a basement somewhere deciding they didn't like the government. This was
these weren't anarchists. This was actual terrorist group. Yeah.
Not only that, this was the French army. There were portions of the French army who wanted to instigate a military coup within the country because France had decided to grant Algeria its independence, and a lot of French soldiers had died in the Algerian conflict, and so there was a sense that they had died for nothing. And this discontent spread throughout the army.
It was very deep-rooted at the time. Very incredibly so. Divided the country to a great extent.
And there were countless attempts on de Gaulle's life. Like like it was basically like reading the CIA book on Fidel Castro. In terms of like just the sheer volume.
Amount of times they tried.
Yeah. But thankfully never managed to carry it out. Though, like as indicated by the opening sequence of this film, they did come scarily close at one point. Yes, an inch.
1 inch away from his head. Yeah.
Yes, not only that, not only an inch away, but a very talented driver who basically saved his life by maintaining control of the car.
Yeah, because no one was injured in that particular attempt, were they?
No.
Which is staggering.
Miraculously. Yeah.
Because it's almost like
they fired over
Tommy
150
gun scene.
Fired over 150 bullets, into the car.
Just miraculous.
Yeah.
Bloody lucky. But yeah, there are moments throughout this film that are just so well poised. The opening meeting when the Jackal first meets the now heads of the OAS who are they're hiding in Austria, is it? And they get this short list of these dossiers of these people they think can carry out the assassination, and they land on what would become the Jackal. And just that first meeting, he is unnerving a touch because he's so cold and calm. He's suave though as well, but an almost distant suave. We're not talking like Bond here.
No, I think what I really, really like about Edward Fox's casting here is that, he's suave, he's handsome and all that, but he has a face that's extremely forgettable all the same. If you saw in a crowd, he wouldn't really stick out.
He's very understated with that as well, which helps.
He's not memorable at all. You're like, you meet him and you'll have forgotten about him 5 minutes later. And that's, I mean, that's the perfect face for an assassin or a spy.
Or like Bond, who's the most famous spy in the world. Who should be a famous spy? You've exactly gone against what you should do. But he's wonderful in this role. And the most poignant moments for me with him are the process of creating the tools by which he is going to carry out the assassination. So the gunsmith, the forger, which we'll talk about, and also then the cold and brutal moments when he knows he has to kill someone because they found him out, they've identified him, they're blackmailing him, whatever it may be,
and the talent with which he's able to seduce people.
Yeah, draw them in very calmly, very collected, and then just be brutal in a heartbeat. And I
think it's worth, because we've talked a lot on these podcasts about violence and the need for sort of graphic violence, and this is a film that where the violence is very low key. There's no blood at all.
No.
But that doesn't make it any less terrifying.
Well, because this guy can kill you with his bare hands. This isn't
precisely.
It's literally, he can literally punch you in the throat and you're dead.
Yeah.
He knows exactly where to kill you in the most easy way. And that's what an assassin is. An assassin doesn't want to cut someone open in a samurai sword and leave blood prints all over the room. Yeah. They want it to be done in the most quick, simple, and easily hidden way they possibly can be. And he does that throughout the film to great effect.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, then we've got Leaping. It's quite a pleasure to watch a character who is so insanely intelligent.
Yeah.
Trying to counter and figure out everything that Jackal is doing. When he first is called in to meet the cabinet. And we should say that the French cabinet, we should say that the cast really is like a who's who of British TV stars of the time. Absolute ton of them everywhere, from all kinds of sitcoms I used to watch when I was a kid, which is really... So the cast is really quite robust, but at the same time, not so known to most people who'd be watching the film, I wouldn't imagine, apart from a few. But Leaping is just amazing. There's so many scenes, like the first cabinet meeting where he's listening to them, he's starting to understand the situation and what
the gravity of it.
With. The gravity of it, exactly.
And then the authority that's being vested in him. Like he tells his assistant, Jacoby's character, it's like, next to the president, we are the two most powerful people in France now. Which is amazing when you think about what he has to undertake and the resources he's given. Yeah. Like every department is his bequest. Subordinate to him,
Whatever he needs, he gets. And we go through this whole process of him chipping away at the Jackal's identity bit by bit, just chipping away ever so slightly until the veneer starts coming off. Yeah. And it's done with such restraint. Most action films or films of this ilk at some point would force the character's exposition on you, force the character's methodology on you, have some kind of elongated emotional moment with that character.
Like a eureka moment.
Exactly.
Oh, I know. I figured it out.
Yeah. And you simply don't get that because his thought process is way too complex.
Yeah.
We can't dive inside and work out, okay, so he's now figuring out, he's contacted the Brits, and the Brits have identified this guy who'd gone missing for a while. Then they find that his passport is there still, so they know he's forged a passport. And all these bits and pieces just start linking together and adding up. But the beauty of it is, the Jackal is being fed information by someone within the French cabinet.
Yeah.
And he just is one step ahead. And as we near the end, he's a fraction ahead.
Yeah.
Not this great move he's made, just these tiny little steps where he's just about managing to get away from this ever-increasing police force.
And he's not infallible. Like in the one scene, the one scene in the film where he falters is where he hasn't had enough sleep and he goes driving and then he ends up in a car accident, like just randomly.
And the other guy is killed. Yeah, and then he spots a couple's car who are off making out in the woods, and he swaps the license plates around. He just seems to find a way, for a long while anyway, of getting out of little situations. But that one in particular is the only one where you think, he screwed up here. Yeah. Obviously, he didn't plan for this, so he's got to think on the fly. And I think that maybe that is why the sequence is there. To show that not everything is planned.
He's able to improvise. Yeah.
Exactly. And that improvisation is what then pushes him through to the final part of the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the gunsmith, and the gunsmith is great.
Oh yeah.
He's a famous comic actor. I can't recall the name now, but he's been in a lot of other films in like the 50s and 60s. And just that meeting where he's like how you would imagine a gunsmith to be. He accepts these kind of plans from the Jackal. This intricately developed gun that needs to be hidden in pipes and can be concealed with ease, with this wooden truss that he kind of leans on, and I just like their relationship. It's not overstated.
Yeah, no, it's like mutual respect and competence. Like
exactly, and he's not in it very long.
No.
And the same with the forger. I really quite like the two bits with the forger.
Yeah.
'Cause the forger has got a sense of arrogance about him. He
has no idea who he's dealing with.
Yeah, so before we talk about the second one, the first meeting, it's basically him wanting forged passports and documents to be able to be this other person, so he's not caught.
Yeah, and so he can set up all these different identities that he can get.
Yeah, and he does that, but he's got original photographs and stuff that relate to that forgery that the Jackal wants back. So they agree next time they meet, they'll exchange the money and be back. But then the forger decides, you know what would be a great idea? Great idea. Blackmail an assassin. Just great idea. But best thing to do.
I mean, he doesn't know that he's an assassin, to be fair.
He doesn't. He doesn't. And he thinks it'll be fine, he'll get away with it. But he just straight up murders him. He just kind of chops him in the throat. Down he goes.
He doesn't just.
Dead.
I mean, not just about.
Is it like
that,
two
but
moves
he manages to sort of get out of him first. That no, this place is completely isolated. No one ever comes in here.
No one will know.
Yeah. So I can just kill you here safely with no witnesses. Yeah.
It's like things just fall into place for that particular sequence. But yeah, then he takes out that chest case thing, hides the body, puts all the shells back in. It's like Agent 47 almost. It's using the tools around you in the most stealth effective way possible.
Yeah.
So I thought those two characters were really cool. And it's what you get in most
they are,
movies.
and they are sort of opposite of each other. Where one is just the pure professional, and the other is the sort of the grifter,
the wheeler dealer. Yeah, exactly. Trying to get more from the situation than he really should.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It is a shame. I did quite like his tenacity, shall we say.
And I think that there's a subsequent scene after that also shows sort of just the Jackal's attention to detail because of the way he hides his gun, where he basically takes, what is it, like the exhaust pipe from underneath the car.
Yeah, he gets into a garage, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he saws off the exhaust pipe, hides the pipes hiding the rifle, hides that into the pipe of the exhaust, and then welds the exhaust back onto his car.
It's almost a perfect fit, that as well.
Yeah,
as it snugly fits inside. But yeah, everything is set up so well for the coming sequences. Every seed is planted before, when it needs to be.
Yeah.
There's no. We've talked about this with a couple of films before.
Yeah, there's no fat. There's no fat.
Exactly, Miller's Crossing being one. There's no fat. Everything is there for a purpose, and you need to watch what's going on because I'll tell you now, for newcomers to this film, there are a lot of... You only really need to be aware of the main principles and a few others, but there are a lot of characters.
Yeah, there are.
A lot of places saying a lot of things, and they'll bounce between
different countries. And there are a lot
countries.
of acronyms for like security services and whatnot.
Exactly.
Like, who's the MI5? Who's the MI6 again?
Yeah. And you can even get confused, I guess, if you don't pay proper attention, because a lot of the British actors are playing French.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is some of the actors sound French. Some of the actors don't sound French. So someone coming in who's not really au fait with what's going on will be, I don't quite get why there's French accents, they're not French accents when we're in France. And this is the French cabinet. So that's a little bit of a weird one for people maybe coming in. And I can understand why. You're not. It's 1973. You're not going to be able to assemble a French cast that would be relatively well known at that kind of period in time for a political thriller, as it were. You'd need to find something else.
I mean, the film was also produced and made in Britain, as far as I know.
Yes. Yeah, it was. I wonder what like a teenager would think of this now. Just in terms of pacing, how they deal with it. Because I feel like, like for instance, Endgame's just come out. The typical big Hollywood blockbuster. Everything moves 100 miles an hour. There's no real thinking time because the film is doing it for you. There's no need to sit there and ponder because there's no pondering to be done. Whereas this is an old school film that really sets out its stall and then gives you the conscious wiggle room to be able to
to connect the dots yourself.
exactly, and properly ruminate over what's happening rather than being told everything. I have to say, I quite like Jacoby in one of his earlier roles. I think
Yeah,
he's quite good as the kind
yeah,
of
he
down the
is.
nose, down the line assistant to Lupin. But in my opinion, I just think Michael Lonsdale
That moment
steals.
when he calls the MI5
Yeah,
chief, like at like
can you
one in
just
the
take the
morning.
call?
Yeah,
I'm sorry to disturb you. Oh, and even when that chief then takes the call from from the French and is like, right, right, right.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, you're important. Ooh, do, do, do.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I'm pretty sure that was the prime minister calling.
yeah. I just the amount
After
of
the
awesome work
MI5
actors.
chief got called to Downing Street, and then he goes to like
Yeah,
the chief of MI6, I think it is, and says, "No, we have to get together on this to figure out who this Jackal guy is." And the MI6 guy, no, this is just like French, blah, blah, blah. And then the phone rings, and yeah, uh-oh,
yeah, yeah,
the
exactly.
shit's really hit the
Uh,
fan.
I'd better be calm about this. Another very interesting point, which is I think when the film turns a little bit and kind of picks up its pace, is when Jackal is he's being chased by now. He's being hunted. They know who he is. They've spotted his car. They know his license plate, and he's already painted the car once after its crash, and before the crash even. Let's get another car. That was a waste of time. But he's now dyed his hair. He's trying to play it as cool as he can to get to his destination, and he gets on a train and he meets a woman. Oh no, it's in the hotel first, isn't it?
No, yeah, that's the hotel.
The hotel.
That's before he even
Oh,
dyes
the
his
train is
hair and
later.
whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah, he meets this woman, this lady. Can't remember her surname.
I think
And
it's like Madame de Fagnier or something.
the
I'm not
Fanier,
sure.
that sounds kind of right. And they kind of meet in the like the lounge, have a little conversation, and he ends up sleeping with her, or we think that's what happened because we only see the kind of aftershock. Oh,
Well,
we see him entering the room
and we also told that that's what happened.
later on. Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
we see them lying naked in bed together.
yeah,
That's
we
it.
have that one shot for a bit, and that's what kind of starts making him unravel a bit in terms of his identity and where he is, because they realize he's been at the hotel. They question her. She says she's never met him before. She lies about being with him, but then later on, that kind of unravels a bit because they go to her house and this massive manhunt is underway. And then the police leave her house, and a bit later, he appears. Just appears. And she really likes this guy. He's mysterious and dangerous.
Dangerous. Yeah,
Doesn't matter what she even says. It doesn't matter what you've done, but tell me what you've done. That attraction to the dangerous side of life, and he sleeps with her, and then straight up kills her,
yeah.
leaves her dead on the bed, and that's the moment at which I think the film kicks into its final act.
No,
You
it
know,
is
he steals the car, her car.
because that's also the moment when it shifts when there's no longer secrecy for the police. They don't have to
Yeah,
keep the investigation
they put
secret
the photo
anymore.
out there now.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
now it's a
exactly.
murder investigation.
Yeah,
All of a sudden.
which definitely helps
Because I mean,
them. But
she's not just an unknown forger in Italy who got buried in a suitcase. She's
yeah,
a rich French noblewoman.
yeah, a prominent figure who would
Yeah,
be, obviously known, and therefore you have to act upon. So that's when it kicks into a bit more of a faster pace, and it's also when we start getting more of his, off the cuff, flat kind of spy antics. He dyes his hair. There's that bit where he's constantly getting asked for his different documents as he's driving through into France for the first time in that end
yeah,
sequence, and it's really interesting to me. Every time he gets away with something, there's this really cold, ever so slight smile, as if like, yeah, I did that. Time to move on. There's
yeah,
so something about it. It's quite sardonic, I've killed that person. I've got away with that. This person is staring me right in the face and has no idea what's coming. Just plays that role so very well.
yeah. And I mean, later on he seduces another guy, another man, in a gay relationship, and he does this. He seduces the French woman and the homosexual guy
Yeah,
because he has to stay off the grid. He has to stay away from hotels because hotels lock their guests, and the police are collecting all these guest logs in order to match them with the names they have of the identities they know. that the Jackal is working under. So that's his way of staying off the grid, is basically to shack up, seduce and shack up with someone else. And for a little while, it's her, and then it shifts to being the other guy in Paris. When she gets to Paris,
who he of course kills as well. As soon as the guy realizes from the news report that it's the Jackal stood next to him, he gets downed as well, very brutally. And we don't even see it; we just hear a smack, and he's down with that cut off side of the kitchen. He does that really well. I think Zimmerman. A lot of directors do it so that you always see this violence, and I love this stuff. So do you, but when it's refrained and when
it's minimalist, it can work.
And when you hear when you hear the sound, you don't see the action. It's often far more effective than actually seeing the action.
When it's implied,
itself. Yeah. I mean, Reservoir Dogs is a classic example. So many people I speak to who've seen that film swear blind that the ear was cut off. No, it wasn't. You'd never see that. It's all about the action, the shot, and the way your imagination takes over from the scene sometimes. But he does that throughout this so very well. I mean, quibbles then. A few quibbles. I'll get to the ending, but a few quibbles. One quibble's the music, because there's barely any of it. I can understand why.
Yeah, I actually like that. The fact that there's barely any music, that it is so minimalist in its approach. I think that actually is a large part in how it builds suspense.
I think my problem with it is that it's not that it's so far few in between, it's that nothing really suits the ambience of what's being created visually. Right. Apart from that opening score for me. As you said, I don't want audible cues, which is what music is often used for, and an emotional cue, because this film doesn't need that. But I just think it could have done with something more, a little, maybe one single prominent theme that maybe recurs here and there, something like that. My other quibble is the fact that you do have this mixture of watching again for the first time. Sometimes I didn't know where I was, but you know who I am, for Christ's sake. I follow complex films very well, but sometimes I didn't quite know where I was. I didn't quite know whether, as I mentioned before, because the use of British voice actors with a smattering of other nationalities, especially French. Sometimes you don't quite know. Like suddenly, okay, we're in Italy now. Was that okay? France, right? Okay, Austria. So it doesn't. And again, that's simply to allow us to ruminate ourselves, to think about it rather than be upfront about things. But I would have quite liked more title cards or something, just something to go.
Yeah, I think. I think I didn't really have that issue, but I think you're right that the film might be too cerebral for its own good.
At times, I just think a newcomer coming to it is going to be a little bit bamboozled by the sheer amount of stuff,
it's
things,
very
and places.
Possible.
Yeah, But apart from that, maybe we could say, or I could say, that at times there are moments when the pace is too slow. At times, but not many. I just think it's a film that you're either going to click with, and the flow is going to get you, or it's
certainly there are a lot of people to whom this film is just going to be too slow, or it's going to be boring.
If you can't handle Blade Runner because it's too slow,
you're not going to handle this.
You're not going to handle this because the pace is deliberate. Yes. So deliberate, and a lot of modern audience might find that difficult to deal with, given what we see now in the way pace of movies pick up and move.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the whole end sequence because it's bloody fantastic.
It is, and the end sequence does actually also use music where the Marseillaise plays a very, very prominent.
Yes, it does.
Part.
So de Gaulle is giving a speech. There's this big parade. Military are out. There's things happening on the street. There's thousands of people
down the Champs-Élysées.
Yeah.
Main Street, Paris.
And everything is kind of getting set up bit by bit. Lupin is getting closer and closer and closer. They know who he is, where he's going, what he's done. The problem now is finding out where he is shooting from.
Yeah, and there's this as de Gaulle moves through each stage of the day. There's this constant, when is he going to strike? When is he going to strike? When is he going to strike? Oh, he didn't strike here when de Gaulle met with these guys. He didn't strike here yet. When is he going to strike? When is he going to strike? And this is just how, it's basically a sword of Damocles hanging over the whole thing. Throughout.
And it's so good at building tension because it's not a simple matter of we know when it's happening. We just need to know if it happens.
Yeah.
De Gaulle almost moves through half a day in these different locations, and every one of them you're like, pleasurable tension, where is he? What's he gonna do? And then finally, we get the bit where well, it's brilliant. This bit, the police are everywhere at this point, on every street corner,
and everyone has a photo of him, like his name, likeness,
completely out
all
there.
of it. Yeah,
but by now, he's greyed his hair, he's greyed his face from that tip he got from the forger.
Like swallowing some ashes or something. Some cordite.
So he does all this stuff.
It's fail.
The medals which he purchased prior
from a flea market,
war medals, and an old kind of battered. And
military. We see him purchase those medals.
And that's the great thing about cause and effect in these older films.
Especially in this one, because every single stage of his plan is shown in its planning stage, and then it's shown later on in its execution.
Yeah, every strand is tied.
Yeah,
there's no loose ends, and I like that about a film which is this inclined to ensure causality exists as it should exist. Every plot device is then fulfilled, but and he's got his leg tucked behind him, and he's on a walking stick.
Yeah, so it looks like he's had his leg amputated, and a French war veteran from World War II or from the French Resistance.
Yeah. And so he meets this police officer.
And we should say it's Liberation Day is the event that de Gaulle attends, which is the day France was freed from German occupation in World War II.
Yeah, we see the Parc des Princes at one point, don't we? See Notre Dame, we see all the the iconic landmarks and the swell of people.
Most notably the Arc de Triomphe, the Triumphal Arch.
And the swell of people around the places. How they, up until that, because the budget for the time, I think, I read somewhere that inflated it would be about 10 million today, which is nothing at all.
Yeah. But the military parade and all of it is just really, really well done.
Like up until that point, you can see how they've got away with such a small budget, because everything is small rooms, small locations, only really the
really
French
intimate.
cabinet. Yeah, exactly, and you could do that on a low budget, but that parade is how they pulled that off. Combining with maybe documentary footage, real footage, other things as well, but the way they pulled that off is quite impressive for the time. Certainly not. There were great big films in the 70s that have epic budgets and this kind of thing, but certainly not a film with this kind of moderate budget.
No, yeah.
So that was great. So he's in his disguise, and we should say throughout the film, he's pretty good at doing very slight adjustments to himself to kind of pass by.
Yeah.
But this is the best one. This is like the Kaiser Soze moment almost.
Yes, absolutely. Where you go, oh my God, that's brilliant. That is the way to get through.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to look at that guy and suspect him. Not
at all.
Like a French veteran from the French Resistance with war medals and amputated leg on crutches.
Yeah. So he manages to get past this policeman who's like, "Who are you? Show me your papers." I live up there in the house. I need to go. Yep, fine. Get past. Gets up there, unfoils his leg, gets the rifle in pieces out
and
of the crutch.
takes out the landlady.
Yeah, it takes out and that as well. It's very much like the gay guy that he
absolutely.
Follows
it's just
home.
cold.
You just have that one shot. The wall section takes her out. Done. Gone. She was in the way. She was an obstacle. She's removed. Then he very methodically takes out the gun, assembles it, lines a chair up, something else, a chair on top of a table.
Yeah.
Puts a towel down, lines everything up, and is ready to take the shot. He's got standard bullets, but for this, he's also got explosive bullets, armor piercing or something.
I think they're hollow point.
Because he gets the 6 rounds, and he takes one, and he goes and practices in the woods at one point.
Yeah, on watermelons.
To align the sight to make sure that he's
that's another brilliant scene.
That whole sequence where he practices, and again, silence.
Yes,
he just sets things up.
No dialogue, no explanation.
No dialogue at all.
It's just show.
Yeah,
don't tell.
Never. It barely ever tells. Because there's no need to. The prologue, as you said, is the only proper tell moment in the film.
Yeah.
So he sets up. He's ready. Now, at this point, the detectives kind of know where he is. They know whereabouts he is. It's just finding the exact place. They manage to talk to the police officer. They click. They realise he's there. He takes a shot. And de Gaulle, once again, that inch we mentioned before, he ever so slightly tips his head forward, and the shot whizzes by.
To kiss the veteran on his cheek as he presents him with the medal. Yeah.
And then he's reloading, and as he's reloading, of course, Lupin jumps through the room and turns around and he shoots him. They're about to shoot, and Lupin gets the shot off. Yeah. And down he goes. And then it's a stark ending. Again, if you're expecting some big bombastic, nail-biting, climactic, he was your father. No, you won't get this. And it's
like we learned that even the identity we thought we had for the Jackal is not actually his identity.
Yeah, so they find the Brit who's actually called this, and this police officer in the Brit,
I think it is.
Calthorpe in his flat. He's like, "What are you doing? Why you destroyed my flat? I'm going to have a word with you about this." So we have no idea who this guy is.
No.
And then one of the last things we see is Lupin basically watching this guy, this Jackal, be buried in an unnamed, unmarked grave, to be forgotten about as if he never existed.
Yeah.
And we have, as an audience, all you can do then is make your own kind of concepts about where this character came from, who they really are, and what nationality are they. Yeah, and that ambiguity is again something.
It could be anybody.
Yeah, it could be any of you, any of us. There could be an assassin anywhere. That's the point they're trying to make. But it's just such a stark way of having Lupin just walk off into the distance.
Especially, I love the fact that the Jackal basically wins. He gets the shot, even for all of the interventions and the epiphanies and the investigative breakthroughs of the police. They can't stop the Jackal from actually setting up and getting the shot. It's just that the Jackal misses.
Just a piece of luck.
Pure circumstance at the time.
Yeah. Just a piece of luck in that context.
Yes.
Which probably shouldn't have happened.
And for the second time, like with the first assassination attempt with de Gaulle, like luckiest man alive.
Yeah, an inch away twice. Bloody ridiculous. Yeah, exceptionally lucky. So I really liked it. Like I said, I've got a few minor quibbles here and there. But
I think they were fair.
As an exercise in pace, in building tension, in effective use of visualization rather than exposition, it's one of the very best films made.
Yeah, I think so, certainly.
Well, I think if you're into your spy films and you want a change of pace, something which isn't quite so jumping out of a helicopter, landing on the side of a building, bungee roping through a window, landing...
Yeah.
Or Bourne's constantly moving hand-to-hand combat.
It's worth noting, there is not a single car chase in this entire movie.
No, there is not. In fact, it's usually like leisurely driving.
Yeah.
The only part when it's not
in a lovely driving, Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, until it is the part when he crashes. That's probably the only car action moment in the entire film. But yeah, he's very leisurely driving around for the most part, being a stealthy-based assassin as you would want him to be. But yeah, I think we should also mention before we finish up that this is one of the single most faithful adaptations of a novel ever filmed.
Yeah, it is.
It really does capture... It's not like capturing the essence of the book. It captures the beats of the book. Yeah. And that's far more difficult chapter to chapter.
And just the attention to detail and the intricacies. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
It doesn't cut corners.
No.
There's one scene I would like to actually touch on. That sort of affected me. When they kidnap some of the members of the police, or the French security service rather, kidnap a couple of members of the OAS and torture them under interrogation. And just the scene where they have to transcribe the interrogation, and they're listening to these screams and so forth, and they're trying to make all these garbled words into actual words like that.
Yeah.
Just the intricacy of that as well was really compelling, I thought, as well.
Well, yeah, because he's trying to understand, and then he's like, "What are they doing to him?" Yeah. And then he's like, and he's trying to repeat it and record it, and then he's playing it back, and it still ends with a scream.
Yeah.
What are they? Yeah. That's a really effective scene, and again, the way it's shot from behind, so we never see the victim's face, is very interesting because it's again one of those moments where rather than just show everything, you are given room to breathe as an audience because you're placed in the seat of the victim when shot from behind.
Yeah.
Rather than, having to force emotion through that character from a forward shot. I think
And you're not really,
really
and
well
you're not
done.
really shown the torture either. You have to listen to it, and you have to sort of, like the
Yeah.
guy listening to it and trying to transcribe. You have to picture and imagine what it is they're actually doing to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, if you've got 2 hours 20 minutes and you've got patience, just a bit of patience, this could be one of the best films you've ever seen, if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
So I just hope people go out and take a look at this, because it's one of the best spy thriller movies ever made.
I think it's certainly a must for anyone getting into film or wanting to study film. Just
The
because,
language of film, yeah.
Yeah, just for that, and for the way it sets up its shots, and for the way it sets up the whole show not tell aspect of the movie.
Well, it's easy to find if you do want to see it. I rented it on Amazon. You own it, don't you? I think on Blu-ray or DVD.
Yeah, though I couldn't find it on DVD, so I ended up actually buying it on the Windows Store, where it's also available. At least it was for me.
I should have checked. Every time we do these, I normally check that because that's where my collection is. This time I didn't. Lo and behold, yeah, typical.
Yeah.
Okay, well, next week, I've got a bit of a left turn. I want us to look at a James Foley film from 1992 based on a screenplay by David Mamet. It's one of the most expletive-laden films and scripts ever conceived by a human being, and that is Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah. It's another classic.
It's a classic that I think is
Always
overlooked.
be closing.
It's always be closing, man. Oh, poor Gil. If you've seen The Simpsons, you will know where the character Gil comes from. It comes from this film.
Yeah. Probably one of Jack Lemmon's finest roles.
It really is. Yeah, it's not an underrated film, but it's an overlooked film. And it often gets lost in conversations. And I just really wanted to see it. It's got some amazing performances. Ed Harris is in it, top of his game. Alec Baldwin is frighteningly good when he comes into it. Jack Lemmon is, as Silver said, I think probably his best role of any role. And he's been in some wonderful roles in his time.
Yeah, Al Pacino is more or less just Al Pacino.
Al Pacino's being Al Pacino because that's Al Pacino. Especially from that moment forward, yeah. It's like after Godfather, he just decided it's going to be Al Pacino from now on. And Kevin Spacey as well is in it. So it's got an amazing cast. It's basically about 4 salesmen who try to outdo each other in really cruel ways. And it's about capitalism, survival.
They get confronted with a sales competition where the winner gets a set of steak knives, the loser gets sacked.
Yeah, and they're all vying over these contracts. It's we'll get to it next week, but it's such a good film. So yeah, that has been the last. We will be back next week. Make sure you follow us, talk to us in the comments, because we love talking about film. We do it every week, and there's a reason we do it.
Please take part in the discussion.
Yeah, these obscure films are kind of our lifeblood, I think. It's what keeps us going from the mundanity of seeing another Hollywood film and its same beats and its same effects and the same narrative you've seen 1,000 times. These are the gems that, well, they provide weight in an often otherwise less than weighty modern era of film. But hey. Right, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Last Edit podcast. I have been Citizen Sleeve. This has been
Silver Hawkins.
And we shall see you very soon.
Take care.